from PATV Studios, it's the Lyle Style Show. And now, the man with the most style, it's your host, Lyle Style.
Hey, welcome to a beautiful edition of the Lyle Style Show. You know, this is politics here. This is, you know, we're gearing up to take back the House. As I said, the House, we're gearing up to do everything. The Democrats are going to control everything. So I have my wonderful guest here. Her name is Janice Weiner. She's running for State Senate of District 37.
Yes.
So I definitely want to introduce and say thank you for coming on the Lyle Style Show. I appreciate that. And so for the viewers that kind of don't really know a little bit about you, tell us a little about your background and what you've been doing.
Thank you very much for having me on, Lyle. I grew up here. I grew up in Coralville, in Old Coralville, right next to Coralville Central. Went all the way up through school here, northwest, west. I went out east to college and west to law school. Tried law for a little bit, and then I really found my first calling, which was the U.S. Foreign Service, working for the State Department as a diplomat. And I did that for 26 years. And what I tell people is essentially I spent 26 years being an unarmed warrior for U.S. values abroad. I started out, my first tour was in East Berlin, and I was there when the wall fell.
Wow.
I was able to write the very first reporting cable after the wall fell, that on November 9th. The next morning, we were out talking. It was an exhilarating period. But at certain times, we were also standing in front of Soviet tanks, and we didn't know if they were going to roll.
So that's kind of scary, though.
So we, you know, Foreign Service officers, a lot of people don't really realize what we do, but we put ourselves out there all the time in the community. I did 2 tours in Turkey. The first as the embassy's human rights officer, and that was really during the height of the PKK insurgency in the 1990s. And I spent a lot of time in the embattled southeast. We were accompanied by APCs. It was really a very pretty dangerous area to be in, but I really felt that I needed to be out there talking to the people who were being affected by these battles, talking to the people who were the victims of human rights violations, and to the people who were trying to work for them.
Wow.
And it didn't make me very popular with the Turkish government.
Oh, I know you wasn't.
Or the Turkish military, but sometimes you really need to do what's right. So, I mean, I spent 26 years doing that. I did a tour in Mexico, a tour in Canada, a tour in Poland, where I had the great honor of getting to know a lot of the Solidarity generation.
Oh, wow, yes, back then, yeah, it would.
And I also, my last tour overseas was as U.S. Consul General in Dusseldorf, Germany, which was in the western part of Germany, and I was responsible, our small consulate general was responsible for the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, and to give you an idea of the scale, that one state of Germany has the population and GDP of the entire Netherlands.
What?
And it's a very diverse population. I got to, for example, I could speak Turkish with people there because there's a fairly substantial Turkish population. I could speak Polish with people there because there's a substantial Polish population. I founded a couple of organizations there. One was a women's group, a professional women's group that still exists and of which I'm really proud. May have seemed a little odd for the U.S. Consul General to form a group that went across professional women, but the idea was to pull women up the ladder so that there were more of them in academia, more of them in politics, more of them in the media, in every walk of life.
Well, now that's a wonderful thing that you started out there, and like you said, it's still going now.
Yes, it is.
So from there, I guess some of them are even in doing what you're talking about, politics or academics, or doing teaching or whatever. So you should be proud of yourself for even starting that organization, whatever. But I mean, now you've been like in some dangerous things, like in Turkey. When you mentioned Turkey, I'm thinking, dang, they really are bad with human rights. They are not good with that. So I'm quite sure. Did you have to have guards with you, or how did you?
We basically went out, the rules where we were allowed to go based on what our security people said. We simply could not go anywhere before daylight.
Right.
And we had to be inside in our hotels or wherever we were going to be staying before it got dark.
Right, okay.
And we generally had a police escort out in that area.
Good.
This was in the mid-1990s.
Right, and that's when it really was.
So that was when, so I was
Right.
back in Turkey as head of political section, as the political counselor in 2000, around from 2005 to 2008. And it was a very different place then. Things, I couldn't believe how far they had come. And again, essentially my job was to get to know, in every country, get to know politicians from across the political spectrum, inside the capital and out as well, because you don't get to know a country and you don't get to know a people and the issues they care about and what makes them tick if you just sit there in the embassy in the capital city.
That's so true. That's so true. And so, thus, what brought you back here to Iowa?
What brought me home to Iowa was I went back to Washington, did a tour working as a legislative liaison with Capitol Hill, helping walk ambassadors through the nomination and confirmation process, helping do briefings for staff and members of Congress. And then we were in the DC area for a couple of years, and I thought, wait a minute. I can do better in terms of schools for my younger daughter. We can do better in terms of not having to stand in traffic for an hour every time we want to go somewhere. And I came back here and started looking at houses and thought, it's time to come home where I can breathe.
There you go. There you go.
So we came back home 3 years ago. For me, it was back. For my daughter, it was the first time.
Okay.
And now I feel that I have this whole set of skills that I've gained across a lifetime, both professional skills and personal skills. I mean, I've run a household and raised kids for over 21 years now. I dealt with elder care issues with both my parents.
Wow.
And so I really think I get it. And I want to bring all these skills to work for the people of Iowa. Why waste them? Let me put them to use.
Wow, I mean, that's a beautiful thing to have and to say and what you're doing and whatnot. I mean, so because your skills as being an ambassador and what you've been abroad in different countries, learn how to talk to people, learn how to bring people together. That's what this state needs, to learn how to bring people together. And so tell us a little bit about what your platform stands for. As far as you running for a Senate, what are your ideas and plan to do if you get elected?
If I get elected, there are at least 3 areas that I really want to work on. The first, which is really of paramount importance to me, is public education.
Oh, yes.
We absolutely need to fund public education properly. It hasn't been funded adequately for at least the last 7 to 8 years. They haven't even been keeping pace with inflation. And at the same time, we must reclaim the Chapter 20 bargaining rights that were taken away last year, because education has always been Iowa's calling card.
That's true. Yes.
I benefited from a fabulous public school education, and I want every other Iowan to be able to do the same. But we're not going to be able to recruit and retain teachers unless we can give them back their collective bargaining rights and treat them like the professionals they are, as well as the other public sector workers. But so public schools, that's really an area of focus for me. And that includes community colleges and the public universities. Community colleges, if you're looking at training young people and people who maybe have lost their job for various reasons, for a skill or a trade or a certificate, it's the community colleges that are at that intersection. They can help create a workforce that's really tailored to whatever business or industry needs them.
Excellent, yes.
And the second part that I really want to work on, and it almost makes me sound like Democrats have become the new Republicans. I want to be fiscally responsible.
There you go. Wow.
I want us to have
a concept.
I want us to have economic development that's actually aimed at each town and city, not giving big property tax breaks to large corporations coming in. But this district is a chunk of Johnson County and also all of Cedar County and the town of Wilton and Muscatine County. Wilton deserves economic development, and so does Tipton and Mechanicsville and Clarence and Stanwood, not just the bigger towns and cities. And that's also where public-private partnerships come in between community colleges and businesses. And we have to find some new ways to promote business.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah.
In those areas. So we need to also take a really good look at state finances and the state budget, find out where we're bleeding money, some of the tax credits, in particular the research tax credit, because the money is there. We need to figure out where it's been going so that we can use it to take care of our people and build our infrastructure,
right.
And help our small towns and our rural areas as well as the cities. And finally, we absolutely have to take care of our vulnerable populations. Medicaid privatization has been a disaster for so many people. The disabled, their services are being cut or their providers are not being paid. Everybody deserves to live a dignified life.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. Yes.
At-risk kids, we shouldn't have so many at-risk kids coming to school hungry so that they have to have a backpack program on weekends at school, or that they have to have school lunches even on the weekends some places. Mentally ill, they're finally passing an omnibus mental health bill through the legislature this year, and I really hope it passes the Senate.
Oh, they are going to do that?
There's a big bill that's working its way through, and it has some really good provisions in it. Much more is needed because we're 49th in the country now when it comes to mental health services.
What? Oh, wait,
which is not a place that we want to be. 49th.
That is, okay. What is that saying about the current people in office? You know, what's it saying about them? Evidently, somebody's dropping the ball down the line. Someone's dropping about 49th. That's unacceptable for the state, really.
Well, we need to be able to recruit professionals. How do you recruit professionals? You can pay them a decent salary. You can offer a really good school for their kids, and employment opportunities for spouses. I mean, Iowa ought to be able to bring these people in, but we have to take care of our education system and our infrastructure and all those other basic things. And we need to absolutely take care of our elderly people and have the services available that they need. Aging in place is much less expensive than having someone end up in an institution.
Wow, that's
figuring out how to, many elderly people who are in nursing homes end up on Medicaid, which is, I'm glad that safety net is there for them. But we also need the state safety net that is supposed to check up on those nursing homes, the ombudsman's office, being funded robustly enough so they can actually do their job. Right now, they're no longer traveling.
Why not? What's the reason behind it?
There's no money.
No, there's money, but there is no money.
There's no money for travel.
Wow, that's unacceptable. I mean, I remember back in the 90s, or 80s, whatever, this state was totally different. Education was number one here.
Yes.
Iowa had the best education system in the country. So you're telling me that has fallen?
It depends on, it's basically teachers are doing an incredible job. You and I both know that a teacher doesn't just work 40 hours a week. A teacher works at home. A teacher brings buys supplies out of their own pocket.
Yes.
They stay after. They work with kids. They're incredibly dedicated. And I think that most of the school districts in this area are still really blessed with excellent teachers and who are working their hearts out to help these kids. But I went to a school board meeting, a couple of school board meetings, and one in particular in West Branch, they said, we could really use some mental health professionals in the schools. And that's where you also see the intersection between being almost last in the nation in mental health and raising our youth. If we could start looking at mental health for children and helping them at that age, have a social worker in the school so that they can help deal with some issues that maybe are being treated right now as behavioral issues, but they're not behavioral issues. And if they can be recognized and helped at an early age, we're going to save the taxpayer a lot of money down the line.
Wow, but that is.
And we're going to make it, and we're going to help these young people with their lives from a very early stage.
Wow, you're. I'm just sitting here thinking, wow, that's a wonderful thing, and it should have been done. We should be doing that, you know. But it takes a person like yourself to get into this office to motivate and to bring that out and to do that type of stuff in the Senate. And so you have a wonderful platform. So what else do you feel like you can contribute if you get elected to the Senate?
There are so many issues that we need to be working on.
We need an hour to do this show when we talk about this.
There are so many issues we need to be working on. When you look at what's happening, what they're talking about doing with taxes right now, for example, when you, as a fiscally responsible person, when I run my household budget, I need to make ends meet. I can't have a deficit.
Right.
And if I'm having a hard time making ends meet this year, I'm not going to, on purpose, cut my income by 15% next year. And that's essentially what they're talking about doing in the tax bills. There's a Senate bill and there's a House bill. The House bill puts us in a slightly smaller hole than the Senate bill would. But I really believe we need to not do tax cuts right now. And maybe that's an unpopular thing to do. But taxes are there for a purpose. Taxes are there to provide services, to provide infrastructure.
That's right.
To help the people who may need help with their health care, to make sure that we have a good education system. So it's beyond me to understand how we can possibly afford a tax cut right now. Let's say that one of the things they're talking about doing in this year is doing away with the backfill.
Okay, what is that?
The backfill is money that was promised to the local areas, to the counties, in 2013 when the state did a substantial rollback of commercial property taxes on the local level, thinking somehow it was going to really jumpstart businesses. Well, it really hasn't done that, but the state had promised to make those communities whole for 10 years.
Okay, for 10 years.
And now they're saying, we're going to phase it out, and we're going to phase it out maybe in the next few years because we the state can't afford it. What would I do? I would say, if you're going to phase out the backfill, which you promised, then at the same rate as you phase out the backfill, you need to give those communities back the ability to raise the commercial tax rates if they need to in order to be able to provide their local services. Because if you hamstring local communities and don't give them any way to raise funds, they in turn are going to have to cut back services.
Oh, wow. That's
and that's been another theme in the legislature that we really need to reverse. For many years, the Republicans were all about local control.
Right.
Until they weren't.
Flip-flopping.
And they've been busy taking away public, local control over the last 2 years in a variety of ways and a variety of topics. People at the local level tend to have a pretty good feel on certain areas and what is good for them. One example last year that seemed to me gratuitous, there were some communities that, in order to help preserve the environment and prevent plastic from getting into the rivers and into the trees, wanted to either charge for plastic bags or put a ban on grocery store plastic bags. And either go to reusable bags or paper bags, which can be recycled. And the legislature said, no. No plastic bag laws.
They passed all these other type of laws? I mean,
they've worked really well in other areas in the country. They've reduced the plastic waste, they've reduced the amount. People may remember the time before we had a can and bottle law in Iowa. The rubbish alongside, the trash alongside the roads was epic.
Oh my goodness.
And then they passed the law, and Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops, I was in one of those, went out and started collecting cans and collecting money for them. And now people are used to recycling and turning in their cans and bottles. This is it's one of those things that has improved life, not made it worse. And it's cleaned up waterways, it's cleaned up the roads.
Are they trying to stop that?
So they're not trying to stop that. I'm just offering that as an example of an initiative that came in that cleaned things up. The plastic bag initiative, people just want to clean things up.
There you go.
They're not trying to tell the entire state they should do that. They're saying, let's say that we here in Iowa City or we in Coralville would like to either one of two things. Either say grocery stores, you can't use these one-way plastic bags anymore, or consumers, if you want a one-way plastic bag, you'll have to pay 5 cents a bag or 10 cents a bag or something like that to encourage you to use the paper bags and to use reusable bags.
Right. That's a good idea. Okay, 10 minutes left. Oh my goodness. You know what? That's a good idea what you're talking about. And your format and what you run it with is, wow, it's a wonderful thing, truthfully. I mean, what you're saying is common sense. That should be done anyway. This should be already done. Education is a form what you're talking about should be already funded. Teachers should be already be able to have quality things, for their education, far as they're raised, they're paid, that type of thing.
Right. If I could add something on the education piece, all districts are not equal, and the rural districts in particular face some real challenges. Some of the rural districts have had to consolidate because there are fewer students.
Right.
And especially in those consolidated districts, but not only, they have very high transportation costs compared to a city district. And they've had to dig in, they've had to use general funds to pay for additional transportation, the number of miles that a kid has to travel to get to school on a school bus every day. So this year they're in the process of passing a transportation plus up, but I think it's only very short term. The districts need something on which they can rely. And paying districts a little bit more, the rural districts, on a formula to account for their additional transportation costs makes a lot of sense, because that means they can still be spending the same amount of general fund dollars on the kids' education, and they don't have to take from that money in order to get them to school.
Oh wow,
so there are a number of, that's one example. There are a number of different issues that people in the more rural areas face. There are towns out there that don't have a pharmacy, for example, or where the ambulance service is not as reliable because it's essentially a volunteer service, and while there may be an EMT available, there may not be a driver available. So there are certain services that we really need to figure out that we take for granted in the cities, that we need to figure out how to make sure that everybody, including in the rural areas, has access to those. And that's another way to actually draw people to those areas.
Right. And so you propose that when you begin in office to kind of bring up a bill, something like that, to kind of help
Find out how to make
solution?
that, how to solve that. Broadband in the rural areas.
And healthcare,
Yes.
You're really involved with healthcare too.
Right, but broadband in the rural areas, there are some rural areas that are fine, there are some that are not. But if we want to help our citizens in the rural areas, we're going to make sure that there's robust broadband available. Why? It's going to allow the kids to do their homework when they come home from school, to get online and do that. It's going to allow the farmers access to what they need as well. And if you're looking at telehealth, because that's really one of the models of the future, smaller rural hospitals, other doctors' offices, being able to connect with a doctor at the University of Iowa or Mercy Hospital here, they need the broadband for that as well.
Oh, okay.
It can really help every area of life to be connected.
Right. So you're just not talking big cities, you're talking about the whole state of Iowa, whether it be big cities, rural areas. Everybody needs a piece of the pie.
Right. So we don't need a rural urban divide. We need to really look at what is going to help. And it's not always going to be the same thing. What's going to help people in the cities? What's going to help people in the rural areas? There's no reason we can't do both.
Oh wow, smart thinking. To me, politicians think they're so smart. They're not. They're so smart, but they're dumb. So it's because I'm sorry to say that, but because they think they're so smart. They're not the simple things, the things that you come up with that should be just automatic, that should be done. is not looked at. The simple things that people talk about. You probably talk to many people out there doing your campaign that should be done because you're working for the people.
Well, and I mean, it's true, half of life is showing up. And if you show up in all these areas and talk to people, and more importantly, listen to them.
Right.
And hear what they have to say and what their concerns are, what's working and what's not working, then you can figure out what's going on. I mean, if you look at the north part of Cedar County, US Highway 30 runs through there.
Right.
And there's been a long-running effort to try and 4-lane Highway 30 all the way across the state.
Okay.
Because it will relieve some of the traffic from Interstate 80,
right.
and it will really help the towns and cities across there as well. So why not? It seems like...
Are they doing that?
There's a coalition that's been working for years to try and get it done. It seems like they're finally starting to get some traction. But again, all of these projects take money.
All right.
But then if businesses are built up and more people live there and more people buy things, that will go back into the state coffers and they'll be able to do more projects.
Right. So we should, you know what, you got to get in office then.
Thank you.
You got to get in office and get this thing started. I mean, come on, we got to, I mean, look, I think we got about 3 minutes left for the show, but if you wanted to make your claim, whatever, why you should be, state senate, District 37, what would you tell the viewers? What would you tell the viewers? That you're the one for that job.
What I tell them is that I believe that I have the right mix of professional and personal experience. Professional experience,
yes, you do.
Working across politics, personal experience, running a household, raising kids, dealing with elder care issues, that I believe that I can step in there on day one and be effective. I have the diplomatic skills. I'm willing to speak truth to power. I always have. And I know how to build coalitions and be a part of a coalition. I don't have to take credit for something. I'm happy, if need be, to give credit to someone else. The main thing is to get it done.
There you go. Because it's a team effort right here. And you're speaking for the people that you represent for the state. That should go. Yeah, that's what you. I mean, and your ideas are wonderful ideas, beautiful ideas that are not far-fetched. Can be accomplished. Can be done. This education. If I was back number one back in the day, no way in the world they should not be number one now, as far as education-wise.
And we still have, as I said, fabulous teachers here. Look at the Iowa City schools and how many National Merit Scholars they have gotten this year.
Oh my goodness.
It's remarkable.
Yeah.
That we have the dedicated teachers. If we, in the next year or two, can really get back the bargaining rights and start moving forward, I think we'll be in good shape.
I think, you know what, with you in the helm, I think we will. So we have to, so I would think people to vote for your conscience, vote on, if you feel the person is right, that you feel that has the idea, that has the mentality, because you have the experience, 26 years of being a diplomat and learn how to do that. That's a long time. You have the skills, you have the tools to bring people together, because you talk to foreign people, everybody like that. So I mean, kudos to you for what you've done. And like I said, Janice, I appreciate it. Thank you for even coming on my show, talking to viewers about why you should be state senator. We appreciate that. I know you make a fabulous one. You need more women in there. That's number one.
I agree.
And I'm hoping
we need qualified women.
Yes.
But what I really tell people is be an informed voter.
Okay.
Look into the candidates, come to the fora, and listen and learn, and then make a decision.
Amen. Now, do you have a follow Facebook thing that they can reach out to you?
Yes, we have our candidate Facebook page is Janice Weiner for Iowa State Senate. And we have a website that has many issue papers, many others are going up, which is Janice, the number 4, Iowa.com.
Oh, amen. So I want to say that again, thank you for the show. Thanks for coming on the Lifestyle Show and making a beautiful speech about why you should be state senator, but you will be a phenomenal one. I have no doubt about that. I just hope that people get out there and vote. Their conscience vote for the real one and the real person that they feel like qualified, because you definitely have credentials to do that. So again, thank you again, and I wish you many blessings in your endeavor about doing it, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens when November get here. And you're welcome to come back on the show again. So, but Bruce told me to wrap it up. So I want to say, hey, all of y'all here, hey, like Janice said, you have to go out there, vote your conscience, vote for what you think is right or not. To get out there, get involved. Do not stay home. If you want to change, you have to get out there and vote. Is that true?
Yes, June 5th primary.
June 5th primary. Get out there and vote June 5th. This lady, she's qualified. You heard what she's capable of doing. So you have to be the deciding person to see what's what. And I think she should make a great person. So again, vote your conscience. Do not cry about things are bad. Then you go out there and do something about voting. Till next time. Hey, Denzel, I'm sorry for bumping on the show, man. I'm happy on the show next time again. I had to get her. She's a beautiful candidate. It's election year. So next time, Denzel, your people talk to my people, I get you back on here on the Lyle Style Show. To then, I want to tell everybody always to keep it classy and never give up. Next time, I'll see you. Bye.